Hello, and welcome to this overview of our project to examine the Sawrań-Kodyma border dispute of 1542. In this presentation, we review an important historical event and show how using period maps can shed light on such events beyond period text accounts of the events. In 1538, Ottoman Sultan Suleiman annexed the Black Sea littoral castle of Çankırman and laid claim to the Pontic steppe between the Dniester and Bug rivers. This resulted in the creation of a direct frontier between Ottoman and Polish-Lithuanian lands. By 1542, violence in the annexed region caused Polish-Lithuanian King Zygmunt I and Suleiman to agree to physically demarcate the limits of their realms in this region. The goal of the project described here was to review period accounts and historical maps to better understand the nature and ultimate failure of the border demarcation negotiations. This presentation consists of 4 sections, starting with some historical background. Here we see the pre-1538 Poland-Lithuania border claims with modern and historic river names. Co-dominium in the Pontic steppe was historically negotiated between the Crimean Khanate and the rulers of Poland-Lithuania. Ottoman seizure and repair of the Çankırman fortress in 1538 enabled Ottoman annexation of Polish-Lithuanian territory between the Dniester and Bug rivers. For Suleiman, control of Black Sea littorals was essential to establishment of an Ottoman lake. The associated settlement of direct Ottoman subjects in the annexed region produced an eruption of violence in the region. This forced the need to demarcate a mutually recognized and enforced border dividing Poland-Lithuania and the Ottoman realm. Zygmunt was ready to cede region between the Dniester and Bug rivers, but where between the rivers should the border be drawn? The Ottoman proposal was to place the border along the Sawrań River, while the Polish-Lithuanian proposal was the Kodyma River. This brings us to the second portion of this presentation, describing the border demarcation efforts. The following is a highly condensed review of the attempts to demarcate the border. A detailed analysis can be found in Michael Polczynski's PhD dissertation. The main points are as follows. The first Ottoman proposal to the joint Polish-Lithuanian-Ottoman Border Demarcation Commission was in spring 1539. In April 1540, Zygmunt's ambassador traveled to the Sublime Porte to initiate an attempt to demarcate the border. In the interim, the number of Ottoman garrisons and settlements grew in the frontier region, and an increasing number of direct Ottoman subjects became embroiled in frontier violence. The king and sultan formed commissions to travel to the region to interview local inhabitants with knowledge of the history of the region, but initial interviews by the commissions resulted in no agreement on the location of the border. As a follow-up, Zygmunt proposed that the 2 commissions ride out into the frontier together. The Turks would present their case and show the royal commissioners where the sultan claimed the borders to be. And then the royal commissioners would ride with the sultan's representatives to where the king asserted that the borders should be. After reaching a conclusion, the king required that the commissions were to place physical markers along the border. By late summer of 1542, the 2 teams of commissioners were physically close enough to one another to engage in direct communications. With both parties ready to meet, discussions focused on where and how to meet. Once all of the preliminary discussions were complete, the Ottoman representative proposed that the parties meet on September 26 in the region of the Sawrań and Kodyma rivers. By choosing to meet somewhere in the vicinity of two rivers separated by about 25 kilometers of high steppe, the Ottoman commissioner's inexact instructions to his Polish-Lithuanian counterparts may have been an attempt to avoid conflict over the matter or to avoid the meeting entirely. But it may also reflect an inexact knowledge of territories that had never before been part of the Ottoman realm. The Polish-Lithuanian commissioners set out on the 15th of September. They traveled with about 600 armed men and made camp on the Sawrań River in preparation for traveling further south to the Kodyma as directed. Their instructions were to approach the Ottoman Commission with 300 men, so not a small force. Once there, the royal commissioners were met by a voivoda of Bender and Ackermann. This messenger relayed Osman Shah's insistence that the royal commissioners communicate to him through the messenger regarding their claimed location of the historical Lithuanian border. The Polish-Lithuanian commissioners refused to discuss the matter through an envoy and sent their own messenger to demand that the delegates meet in person as ordered by both king and sultan. They suggested the Kodyma River as the meeting place, since at that moment it ran between the two commissions. The Ottoman commissioner replied through a messenger that he would meet them at the Kodyma border, but failed to show up when the royal commissioners arrived. Instead, they were met with yet another messenger claiming once again to have been empowered by the Sultan's delegates to discuss the location of the border. Zygmunt's commission sensed that there was something amiss with the Ottoman envoy, so proposed to travel to the Delagol River to meet with the envoy. A messenger returned to the royal commission to report that the Ottoman commissioner would not advance further than the Kodyma River. The next day, a second royal messenger returned with a message from the Ottoman commissioner promising to ride out and meet with the Polish-Lithuanian Commission 3 miles from the Kodyma River on the 1st of October. Unfortunately, when the Polish-Lithuanian commissioners traveled to the new designated meeting place, the Ottoman envoy failed to appear. This ended the attempted negotiations. So, why did the negotiations fail? It turns out that Petru IV, the voivoda of Moldavia, had informed the Ottomans that Zygmunt had a large army ready to attack. This was not the case, so why would Petru do this? Rapprochement between Zygmunt I and Suleiman was viewed by successive Moldavian rulers as a threat to their limited autonomy within the Ottoman vassalage system. Petru was concerned that border demarcation would have essentially recognized the Sultan's annexation not only of Lithuanian or Crimean Khanate territory, but also the Sultan's seizure of the Bujak region of Moldavia. At about the same time, Petru wrote to Zygmunt warning him that the Turks were looking for new places to build frontier fortresses along the Dniester River. He warned that if the Ottomans succeeded, they would then attack Poland-Lithuania and try to take the fortresses of Kamieniec-Podolski and Bratslav. He told Suleiman that a Polish-Lithuanian army of 12,000 troops was north of the frontier preparing for an attack on Ottoman lands. He implied that Zygmunt's willingness to engage in the border demarcation was a ruse meant to draw the Ottoman envoy out into the steppe where he could be captured or killed. This would be the opening move of a Polish-Lithuanian invasion that would have retaken Ottoman forts along the Black Sea littoral. Other messengers reinforced this rumor of an impending Polish-Lithuanian invasion and that the border demarcation effort was part of the Polish-Lithuanian plot. Thus Petru, the Sultan's own tribute-paying client, subverted the will of king and sultan and forestalled any hope for a stable frontier between Poland and Lithuania and directly administered Ottoman territories of the North Black Sea littoral. At this point, we pose the question, why did the demarcation negotiations focus on the territory around the regions of the Sawrań and Kodyma rivers? Sigmund's instructions to his commissioners were that even if they should lose their heads, the border should be the Kodyma River and not the Sawrań River. In order to shed light on this issue, we turn to the maps of this region prepared by Beauplan. The maps were drawn about 80 years after the dispute, but provide an early comprehensive description of this region. This Beauplan map shows the region of the disputed border with key rivers, river crossings, and travel routes. Here we see another such map showing landmarks in the disputed region. And another relevant map showing the disputed region. Using the materials provided in the Beauplan's Ukraine repository, derived from Beauplan's maps, it is possible to examine a cartographic representation of the disputed region. See the links below for more info on this repository and related materials. Here we see habitations shown on Beauplan's maps, with very few habitations south of the Sawrań River except for a string along the lower Dniester River. But what Beauplan's maps also show are numerous river fords and islands along the Bok and Kodyma rivers, with the Kuchmański Szlak running through this region. So, using Beauplan's maps as a guide, we can see that due to the presence of many fords and islands and important travel paths, the region of dispute was a key strategic attack and defense bottleneck for Poland, Lithuania, and the Ottoman Empire. Control of this region provided a gateway between these competing polities. The region was apparently so strategically important that it was worth losing your head over. So, how did things turn out in the long run? No formal border demarcation would occur in this region until after the 1621 Battle of Chotin, which resulted in the Treaty of Chotin, with the border ultimately being established in the vicinity of the Kodyma River. Returning to Beauplan's maps of the disputed region provides another insight into events in the region during this time period. Here we see that Beauplan's maps distinguish between a Pagus and a Swoboda Nowa Kolona. A Pagus is a normal village of the Ukrainian countryside, typically under noble ecclesiastical or royal jurisdiction, owing dues or services, while a Swoboda Nowa Kolona was part of deliberate colonization policies where settlers might be free from certain dues for 10 to 20 years. Using Beauplan's maps and data from the Beauplan's Ukraine repository, this map of the region of dispute shows a high proportion of Swoboda Nowa Kolona habitations in the region. This would appear to indicate a concerted Polish-Lithuanian effort to colonize the region, thereby establishing hegemony over this strategically critical interface between Poland, Lithuania, and the Ottoman Empire. Thank you for watching this overview of our project to describe the Sawrań-Kodyma border dispute of 1542. In addition to reviewing an important historical event, this work demonstrates how using period maps can shed light on such events beyond period text accounts of the events.